Okay, thank you. It's nice to be here in the southern part of the county. So has anybody here lived in Miami Shores or lived in Miami Shores?
Lived there.
Did we throw you out or what happened? So you did, huh? Okay, great. So we got some people that have some knowledge of our village. Okay, so, well, thank you, Bob, for inviting me here for the next 3 hours, you said? Is that when's the break for?
Yeah, okay, we charge you by the hour, whatever you can afford.
Okay. Alrighty, so speaking of pioneers, so I'm the archivist at the local library, which is called Brockway Memorial Library. And Brockway actually is not part of the Miami-Dade library system. It's owned by the village, and it's been that way for many years, governed by a board of trustees. I think there's about 2 or 3 libraries in the county that are owned by the city as opposed to part of the county system. But we have an archives there, of which I am a part-time archivist. And we find all these pictures here that a lot of them were donated by Thelma Peters. And if people don't know Thelma Peters, she really wrote the book about, literally about Northeast Dade, really. She wrote the book about Biscayne, she wrote the book about Lemon City, and she wrote the book really about the communities up there as well. North Miami, Miami Shores, El Portal, and Biscayne Park. So, and she donated a lot to our archives, of which this photo is, and that's Bob Burr on that alligator right there. Just kidding, but it's a kind of a wild story. So this is a pioneer family from that area that were homesteaders. They were called the Barnotts, I'm sorry. And after that, Mr. Barnott died, and his wife married a pedant. And so they were a pioneer family up there too. But everybody always loves this picture in the archives here, so.
That might have been Fred Hand's studio, you know?
No, I do not, no.
Fred Hand had the first photo studio in South Florida.
Oh, wow, okay.
And he had the Everglades backdrop and the alligator. And every kid had to get a picture of the alligator.
Well, good, hey, there you go. Well, thank you, Robert. Okay, so the first pioneering community in that area, of course, the indigenous people were there as well. You know, the indigenous people who were centered around the waterways, the Miami River, the Little River, which is close to Miami Shores, and Snake Creek, which is a little further up in nowadays North Miami Beach. But the community that really started this area in terms of pioneering was Biscayne. So that was around 1870. And the one who really was sort of foremost in developing this community was William Henry Gleason, who met another guy, William Henry Hunt. So apparently, William Henry stick. Is there any William Henrys here? Okay, I guess not. But anyway, so William Henry Gleason and William Henry Hunt were from New York, and they were lawyers. And they came down here during Reconstruction after the Civil War, and they were very opportunistic. They were called carpetbaggers, basically. And they ended up in Fort Dallas. You know, that was really, Fort Dallas was where the city of Miami used to be called Fort Dallas before Miami. It was used in the Seminole Indian Wars, all 3 of them. And somehow he wrangled his way into Fort Dallas. And apparently there were a lot of transients. According to Thelma Peters, in 1870, there were about 85 people in Dade County. And a lot of them came through Fort Dallas, came and went, but apparently they were able to exert this authority, and by hook or by crook, they exerted influence on the state, and he got elected lieutenant governor, and William Henry Hunt got elected senator. And that gave him control over the local community. So they had a post office there too. And they took the post office and they went up to Biscayne, which is really in the eastern part of Miami Shores right now. And with that post office, developed Biscayne, and actually became the seat of Dade County for a short period of time, believe it or not. And there, he was a tax collector, he was a tax assessor, he was the head of the schools. I mean, they appointed themselves to all these positions of authority, and they had really control over that local area there. And so really, he was the one that really kind of started that community, like I said. And there was actually another homesteader, I mentioned his name, Barnott, and he ran the mailboat from Biscayne all the way down to Key West. Mr. Gleason hired him. Did he get paid? No. He tried to get payment for years and years and years, and eventually the family settled, and he was awarded a homestead in present-day Miami Shores. He's a really interesting guy, too. He was head of one of the House of Refuge. I think there was 5 houses of refuge around Dade County. This one was probably close to the band shell on Miami Beach on 71st Street. There was a house of refuge there. I guess they were sort of the kind of precursors of the Coast Guard or something. They were really, offering refuge to anybody that would be stranded out in those waters. So anyway, and there was also the barefoot mailman, and Miami Shores has a history of that too. I've been speaking to them. I'm doing oral histories actually with some pioneer family descendants as well as longtime residents. And I'm speaking to one gentleman whose name was Oxer. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Well, Oxer, actually, he was from Germany, and I think they might have changed the name, but he eventually had a homestead that would include where our center is, basically, and some of it stretched into Miami Shores as well. But that family had a history of being the barefoot mailmen. And in Biscayne, the barefoot mailman traveled barefoot. But he went from Jupiter all the way to Biscayne. And how long did it take him to do that route?
3 days.
Longer. 2 weeks. It was a 2-week route going up and down. And so the demise of the barefoot mailman was really when the road was, there was no roads, there was no bridges. Biscayne really was just a water, and they were sort of bayfront tracks. And the people were really on close to the bayside where the Coral Ridge goes through the high ground, where they could plant their fruit groves to live on, and their homes. And so in 1892, there was a road that was built called the Lantana Lemon City Road. And that was really the first infrastructure that was in the interior. And so the barefoot mailman went the way of the Pony Express, basically. There was no more need for that since they could carry mail by that route, by land.
I wanted to add something interesting you might not know, is the Boy Scouts recreate that barefoot mailman.
Yes, they do,
song
yes.
Every year. So, but they go from Pompano to Key Biscayne, and they do it one night over where they camp on the beach. Yeah.
Have you done that route?
I have not personally, but our scoutmaster for Troop 7 did every year that they did it. He only missed 1 year when his sister got married.
Yeah, it's a very unique sort of South Florida tradition, really, and it's really it's really amazing that they could do that sort of thing. All right, so some of the earlier settlers here. I look at this guy over here. He kind of reminds me of the Smith Brothers coffee drops. I don't know which one, but one of them anyway. But that was Ephraim Sturdivant. So what is Sturdivant? You guys are pioneers.
Julia Tuttle.
He was the father of
Julia Tuttle.
Julia Tuttle, that is correct.
Oh.
And so he came from Cleveland, and he lived here. He came down, I think, in around after the Civil War as well, around 1870, circa 1870, and he lived with the Brickles for a while, and then he eventually got his own homestead up around where Berry College is today, basically. And so Julia Tuttle was his child. He had other marriages and other children, but only one child with Julia's mother. And here we have T.V. Moore, the Pineapple King. So T.V. Moore actually, and this is interesting too, so I've interviewed the great-grandchildren of T.V. Moore, and they have the history is unbelievable. They trace his history all the way from England, to Jensen Beach, to down here, and there was like 3 TV Moores, and I forget what the names, but they're like they're very $50 words basically for their first names. But so TV Moore though bought about 200 acres in current day Miami Shores, where the business district is right now, Northeast 2nd Avenue, and planted the pineapples. The soil was very fertile for that type of product with the pineapples, with sandy soil, and so he was very successful with that. But then eventually there became a competition from Cuba and Hawaii that undercut the market, as well as a blight on pineapples, and that sort of ended that. So he basically decided to sell the land, and he moved to the design district. and he got into furniture. And right now, the Moore Building in the Design District, have you guys seen that? It's unbelievable. It's from 1920. Actually, his family house is in the Buena Vista area. It's still standing as well. It's a Mediterranean Revival house that's not owned by the family anymore, but the Moore Building has become actually a private club. I mean, it's gone way up, and anyway, so it's quite the history and the story of that building. So who bought his land? This guy L.T. Cooper from Dayton, Ohio, who made all his money selling tanlac. What's tanlac? Well, tanlac was, I'm glad you asked that question, by the way, sir. So tanlac was really an elixir, you know, like they would sell like snake oil and stuff like that, basically. And I don't know if that was true in Dayton, but my girlfriend went to school in Dayton, so I'm not going to say anything bad about that. But anyway, so L.T. Cooper ended up with about 1,000 acres from El Portal to Miami Shores, and before we get into that, here's the Barnett family again. So Barnett, I'm sorry, one of the Homestead families, and this is the man that Hugh Anderson bought that land from L.T. Cooper. So Hugh Anderson was really the president of the Shoreline Company, and he was the man who had a vision for Miami Shores. And he had really sort of made his mark, actually before he started the Shoreline Company in 1924, he was involved in the Venetian Island project on Miami Beach. And I don't know if you guys know, but there's only one true island on Miami Beach.
Mortal Island? I don't know. Not sure.
Starts with a B. It used to be called Bull Island. Now it starts with a B and it's called Bell Island.
Right.
All those other islands are all artificial. They're all dredged up from the bay, basically. And so he was involved in that project successfully of doing that. And also, he had a vision, I don't know if you guys know this, but he had a vision of 9 islands going from the Venetian Island all the way up to the bay, up to Miami Shores Island, which I'll talk about in a while. 9 islands. And I don't really have it, but I mean, anyway, so Venetian Islands is here. It would go up here. They'd have these wings over here, and they'd be connected all the way up to Miami Shores Island. And you can see the wings over here and stuff like that. And each one was have a road through it called a campanella. It was based on a bell tower, you know, from the Italian influence. And didn't happen. But do you ever see that, if you ever go to Julia Tuttle, you see all those pilings in a circle?
Right.
Yeah. That was going to be one of his islands.
Yeah,
You know?
you're oval shaped.
Yeah, that's correct. So that would have been one of them. So, I mean, the guy had really a grand vision.
Did you need permission to do any of that?
That's a good question. I do know there's a lot of articles in the Miami Herald that we have in the archives where they were talking about this. They were getting endorsed by the city of Miami Beach and stuff to do this stuff. So I would assume whatever legalities that he had to get through, that he got permission to do that. All right, so the Shoreline Company, like I said, was in 1924, and there was probably a couple of other directors of note. Roy Wright and Roy Anderson's cousin, whose name was Ellen Spears Harris, was also involved. Is that me making that noise?
Maybe the microphone. Yeah, that might make a difference.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. All right, so he purchased 2,800 acres of land to start this. So Miami Shores was a boomtime community, much like Coral Gables, much like Miami Springs, like Hialeah, Opa-locka, all those communities we were talking about that celebrated their centennial years. This was similarly a boomtime community. So he had a great vision. So he had businesses, marinas, golf courses, canals, and country clubs. As a matter of fact, if you've ever been to Miami Shores, anybody been on Grand Concourse? It's probably one of the grander streets in the village. It's super wide.
Yeah.
And there was a reason for that, because they had a vision of having a canal down the middle of Grand Concourse. Of course, what happened, the bus came in 1926, so a lot of these plans were derailed, but these guys really had grand visions, like David Merrick did for Coral Gables and others did for these boomtime communities. So the biggest parts, though, of the land purchase that he bought was the northern portion called Arch Creek, and the southern portion, which is today's Miami Shores. Yes, sir?
Who did he buy him from?
He bought it from L.T. Cooper, and I'll show you, that's a good question. Okay, so this is how it breaks down. So Arch Creek, 900 acres, that was part of L.T. Cooper's holdings. The Bayview Estates, that's present-day Miami Shores, 1,000 acres, that was also L.T. Cooper's. The Gordon Tract, that was separate, that's about 100 acres. The Gordon, he was a son of a Confederate general, and that's probably in the eastern part of Miami Shores, close to the bay. And then Miami Shores Island. Wait a minute, there's no Miami Shores Island. What was Miami Shores Island?
To be.
Today, I think Ivanka Trump lives there. Indian Creek, that's correct. So that was the great vision of it was going to be Miami Shores Island, 600 acres, and it didn't come to be, and now that is Indian Creek. Do you have a place there? Just kidding.
I do the golf pro.
There you go, okay. All right, and there was 200 scattered acres that made up that 2,800 acres. Okay, so part of the grand plans, he hired this guy, John Livingston, who was a landscaper, and he sent him to Europe for about 4 months to go look at architecture and landscaping in all over Europe and North Africa to kind of come back with recommendations for this community on how the architecture of that community would be and how it would look. I'd like that job, I'm telling you. So what did they decide on? They decided on the Mediterranean Revival architecture style, of which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. That Coral Gables has that style. There's a lot in Little Havana. It's scattered all over South Florida, really. And where did that come from? That style originated from a pavilion show in San Diego in the early 1900s. And so, you know, academics get into this. The Mediterranean Revival, they said, well, how can you have a revival of something that's made up? Because it's a made-up style of architecture, really. It consists of Spanish, Italian, Moorish, and Arabic, and they kind of threw it together. And it was at this pavilion in San Diego became very, very popular. The cousin to this would be the mission-style architecture that you would see in California, and it has a bell tower on it. But they all have the same thing. They have the rough stucco exterior, they have a lot of arches, they have a lot of balconies, and they have the barrel tile roofs. As a matter of fact, we have a guy in, well, I'll wait until I'll show a slide so you can illustrate it better. All right, so the Shoreline Company did complete about 100 homes prior to their bankruptcy in 1926. All right, is that better? And I'm sure you guys all know about the bust of 1926. There were multiple factors. The hurricane was one, it wasn't the only one. There was a railroad embargo that they couldn't get the materials in to continue the boom. There was a ship that got stuck in the turning basin of Biscayne Bay that other ships couldn't get through. So there were a lot of factors that contributed to the bust, as well as business cycles. With every boom, there's a bust. Okay, so this is the Roy Wright House. Roy Wright was a vice president, and so these really elaborate two-story Mediterranean Revival homes were really meant for the directors. So they had a lot more, not as grand style homes, but in the same architectural style. And so this one's on the National Register and the local register as well. It's really interesting, the guy who grew up in that house, he's a friend of mine too. He was one of 7 brothers and with a single mom. And so he's got the house now. He says he spent the last 30 years repairing all the damage that he and his brothers did to that.
Is that right at the water?
No, it isn't. It's on Northeast 2nd, 96th Street, just off of Northeast 2nd Avenue, 1 block going east. And this house is another one. And that's the Spears Harris house. And that's owned by a preservationist as well, just had a marker put there as well. And also, do you see the barrel tile roofs on the top there? So the owner of this house, actually, this seems counterintuitive, but those barrel tiles, a lot of them were made in Spain, went to Cuba, and came over here. The older they are, the stronger they are. Some of them are 200, 400 years old, and they're stronger. It seems like, in this day of products becoming obsolete, there's no way a roof could last that long. So when they do these new roofs on these, they take these off gingerly, put the paper down, and put them back up, and voila, you have a new old roof. But they're very much the Cuban style, and they have a lot of, it's called a pan and a cup. It's different than the Burger King roofs that you see all over the place, much grander.
Where was that one at?
What's that?
Where was that, the house before?
Oh, they're right across each other on 96th Street.
Are these the ones that were shaped on people's thighs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always say, you always hear this, that yes, those barrel tiles were shaped on the thighs of Cuban maidens.
It's a good story.
Yeah. We got any Cuban maidens in here? Anyway, so I've never seen any documentation. I've heard that story many, many times, but a lot of times we say that's a story, but as far as I know, do you know, Robert? Do you know anything?
There's a kernel of truth to it probably somewhere, but it would be hard to do major production at that speed of the thigh,
Well, it depends how big the thighs were.
Oh, no.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. All right. So the Grand Concourse Apartments was the only multi-family story that was built. I mean, they had visions of huge marinas and hotels. They had a whole business plan for schools, churches, business district. It just wasn't fulfilled because when the bus came, obviously they were out of the game, and somebody else took over, which I'll talk about. But the only one that was done was the Grand Concourse Apartments, which are now condos, by the way. And that was done by Robert Law Weed, and he's a very famous architect in our area. He did a lot of houses, many different styles. I know he's done frame houses, he's done Mediterranean style, he's done MIMO, he's done Art Deco. He also was responsible, he did a lot of the University of Miami buildings as well. Okay, so how did the name Miami Shores come to be?
Good question.
Well, again, I'm glad you asked that question. So there was a waltz that was very popular during the 20s. If you see it on Miami Shore, not Shores, and it was by Victor Jacobi, and it was like one of the most popular waltzes in the country at the time.
Wow.
So they took that, actually go on YouTube, you can actually hear it if you're a waltz aficionado. But anyway, that's the origin of the name. So, marketing and advertising. So the Shoreland Company had over 75 salesmen. They had their main building was down on Flagler Street, the Flagler Arcade, 133, I believe. And they would have buses that would take prospective customers into the area, and they would have concerts, and they'd have a band playing. And speaking of ads, these are some of my favorites. So we have a ton of these ads in our archives. These are full page. There's one here in particular. This one is my favorite. Oh yeah, the middle one. Check that out. Don't dilly-dally, don't procrastinate, don't wonder, don't wish, don't regret. Be a successful man. So apparently if you were a successful man, you bought a house in Miami Shores, right?
Obviously.
But they had, and there's all different iterations of these ads. We must have about 80 of these, full page, that was donated by Thelma Peters. I mean, they're amazing. And get a load of this, and I did repeat this at another, some of you were at another talk I gave, but Dr. George did an article about the boom in the 1920s. I think it was actually his thesis. But, so get a load of this. He says, Miami's newspaper, a vital part of the boom, were dominated by real estate and subdivision ads. Daily editions of the Miami Herald averaged 88 pages. The Sunday Herald contained 112 to 168 pages. The Herald's advertising space for 1925 exceeded that of any newspaper in the world. One woman told the Herald, "I'd like to take home the Sunday Herald, but I'm afraid it'll fall on me." So the marketing and ads and stuff like that were really a big part of this boom all over South Florida, but particularly in Miami Shores. Okay, so here we had the first sale, 12/4/24. Shoreline Company's lots for sale, $2,500,000 sold in one day. Only to be exceeded the next year for the Arch Creek section, 1,500 lots, a one-day sale, 22 million. But actually it was 37, but they oversold it. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the Binder Boys and stuff like that. So they would, you put a small deposit on this and a Binder Boy, and then he'd take it to somebody else, and then he'd buy it and put a small, and they could, these deeds or binders to buy could change hands, 3 or 4 times a day. It was just a part of the boom of our area. Well, there's the band and the buses, welcome you guys to kind of come purchase some real estate. And this was also one of their visions, Pueblo Feliz, Happy Village. So this was completed in 1925. In the present day area, I'd say would be 125th Street, which is now North Miami, and about Dixie Highway. So this was like a 300 feet by 300, a walled Spanish village. Inside the village, they had cafes, they had shops, they had all sorts of things going on there. But their big production, they did a production of a play called Fontania, which was the history of Florida. And apparently, it was an extravaganza. I don't know how many people they had in it, but it was a bunch of actors and actresses. And why did they have this? Because the Shoreline Company hired this guy, not that guy, Arthur Voigtland, who was a Broadway producer from New York, to come down, and he organized this play. It was only seen once before the hurricane in 1926 basically decimated this. So. But it's really interesting. There's some benches there that were donated to the oldest church in Miami Shores is called the Miami Shores Community Church. It's from the 30s. And it was donated there, and they used them as church pews. And that church has downsizes, sold the building. Now we have one of the pews in our city hall with an explanation, a picture of that building, and a picture of the program, and an explanation of what it was used for. All right, so what happened after the bust? Well, it was taken over by Bessemer Properties. Bessemer Properties was a division of the Phipps Corporation. The Phipps Corporation originally was in steel, so Bessemer was actually a British inventor that found a better way to smelt steel, and the Phipps loved that, so they named this company after him. So this guy, Roy Hawkins, became the vice president of Bessemer Corporation. They took all the Shoreline's company holdings and they formed a new Miami Shores company and started building out the village. One thing that Shoreline Company did too, they had a vision for, was Biscayne Boulevard. They were the ones who tried to start that road. They wanted away from Miami Shores going to downtown. So before they went bankrupt, they borrowed money from the Phipps Corporation to get homes, to get property. Part of that was the Deering area, probably in the 50s, 40s on Biscayne. That used to be a grove, basically. And which is now Bay Point, by the way. But anyway, so Roy Hawkins was the one who headed up this effort to go ahead and finish building out the village. And in 1932, well, first of all, Miami Shores was annexed by the city of Miami in 1925, like other communities. I think Coconut Grove was the same year. I'm sure there were other ones as well. But he got the village de-annexed, if that's a word. And so he was very politically savvy to do that, and he appealed to the state of Florida legislature in 1932, and they incorporated Miami Shores Village in 1932. There was little problem because in 1926, the town of Miami Shores was incorporated. And this guy must have had a lot of political savvy because the town of Miami Shores became North Miami. They lost the name, we got the name. To the victors go the spoils, I guess. And here's a picture of Miami Shores Elementary School. It's from 1929. It's a great Art Deco style building, still there. Big part of the community. Again, Robert Lawweed. There we go. That's one of our only Art Deco buildings in our business district. The Miami Shores Theater. The theater sign, unfortunately, is gone. That sign was iconic. Let you know you were in Miami Shores. You saw that sign. We're trying to track it down. We don't know where it went. But there you go. We had the Southern premiere, 1946, of Blue Skies with Bing Crosby. And there's our library from 1948. There's Roy Hawkins on the right from Bessemer, and the architect Edwin Reeder, who I've interviewed his son, basically. And this was declared a local historic landmark in 2025, I believe.
Did he also build a jail?
He did. How did you know that?
I went to school with Pete Reader.
You what?
I went to school with one of the Raiders.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
With Pete?
Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed Pete. And Pete just had his house, his father built his house as well. It's a mid-century home in Miami Shores, and he had it locally designated as well.
He also did a hotel in the Key.
He also did, not really proud of this, but there's that, it used to be called the Biscayne Theater. It was right across the street where the Playboy Club used to be, and now it's a strip club, but anyway, he built that too.
Right on the river, maybe, right? Yeah.
Well, across from the river, yeah.
Across from the river, yeah.
I mean, there's an auto parts store there now, where the Playboy Club used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the city of Miami.
Yeah.
And the Playboy Club left because the area got too dangerous, so. Anyway. Well, anyway, that's really the kind of stuff I wanted to present today, so I'll be happy to take any questions.
When did it incorporate?
1932.
And you say you're not sure where the Shores Theater sign is, but have you looked at Seth's garage?
I'll pass on that one. Yes.
The library, was it started by the women's club by any chance? No? So that's,
No, but all the board of trustees were all women.
okay.
And some of them was, Edwin Reeder's wife was one of the original trustees. George Brockway, who actually, this is really kind of cool. So George Brockway, I forgot about this. So actually I'm going up to Cortland, New York, where George Brockway came from the Brockway Truck Company. Back during the war, his father or grandfather they made trucks for military trucks, and then he went into commercial trucks. And these Brockway trucks are prized by people. They stopped making trucks in the 70s, but every year they have a festival in Cortland. I never heard of Cortland before, but I'm going there this year. It's going to be really interesting. And so that's where he came from. But so he came down, and I have articles where George Brockway stayed in the Royal Palm Hotel. His son had a Legion, whatever you call it. They have a name for that, right? American Legion Post in Miami Shores as well. So it was really interesting.
Is that Brockway there?
It is.
Okay.
That's George.
Why didn't they want to join the Miami-Dade Public?
They think they have better control over, it's open, if you don't live in the village, it's free to people live in the village, it's $75, but but anybody can come in, there's no restriction on who can come in and who can't come in. But they feel they having that local control over it, as opposed to being part of the county, is really the better way to go.
I think that so many, various libraries were established before the county library system existed.
Yeah.
It was only Helen Muir's, insistence that the county started libraries. As I remember the story, Ellen, you probably know better than I, But, yeah, the county was a little bit late to the unified library scheme. A lot of towns and cities had their own libraries much further
Yeah,
back.
like Coral Gables was started by the Women's Club, and then it was taken over by the city of Coral Gables and became a county library.
And that was a common story. A lot of women's clubs started libraries.
Yeah, Coconut Grove Women's Housekeepers Club started the library. You'll notice that there's libraries often next to women's clubs.
Yes.
And that's why.
Yes, sir.
Was there ever any farming up in Miami Shores?
There was, like I said, back in Biscayne,
In Biscayne?
during the pioneer times, they were farming for themselves.
Farming was the only thing, yeah.
Whatever, they were feeding their families, basically. I mean, it wasn't commercial. There was, they did have a sawmill going on. They had Kunti mills. There was a Kunti mill on 103rd Street at one point, which actually ended up moving down to South Dade. His name was, I'll think about it, and it'll come to me. A.B. something. That ended up coming to South Dade, actually. But anyway, so they did have that sort of stuff going on. And then the pineapple farming, yes, during the turn of the century.
Hialeah was a cattle rancher, right? Right?
I think so. I've never lived in Hialeah.
Well, there wasn't agricultural cattle,
Well, the Grahams owned a bunch up there, Bob Graham.
or before the grant.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
How does Reynolds Park work into that area?
Well, Reynolds Park is in North Miami Beach, but I do know that was a Depression project, a WPA project. And that's considered to be that park. I think every section of the county has like a flagship park, a bigger park. And down here it's tropical, I believe, right? And then up there, it's Reynolds Park.
But it was an equestrian center for a while.
I'm not sure. Yes, sir.
In the early 1950s, my little girlfriend was Gary Geiger. Her mom was Jackie Geiger, who was head of the Edison cadets that marched at halftime for Edison High.
Yes.
At the football games in the Orange Bowl. And on the warmer months, on Saturday and Sunday, the coaches from Edison High would meet at Morningside Pool. And the mother used to take Gary and I over there swimming right off of Biscayne Bay. And I wondered if Miami Shores went down as far as...
No, that's City of Miami, Morningside. That's in the 50s. Miami Shores goes down to about 87th. Is the border.
So what are the boundaries? 87 and to the north?
Yeah, it's a little zigzag. It's from the bay to about northwest 2nd or 3rd Avenue, 87th Street, up to, by Berry, up to about 115th Street.
So it's a real narrow.
But there's some cutouts there too,
And the demographics, have they changed quite a bit?
It's a lot younger.
Yeah,
It's
it's attractive.
But like all, it's very interesting now because there's been a lot of debate. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get to you. But there's a lot of debate about McMansions and stuff like that. And so, and these historical homes, So if they're not designated, they can be demoed, basically. And they're trying to put some, in order to prevent these spec homes where these people come in to build and then they don't live there, right? They flip them. And they built this one that looks like a office building, and people got really upset about that. And so what they did is they hired a consulting group of planners, and they put some, before, all Miami Shores, to build there, all you had to do is have your setback and your height. You could fill in the rest of the lot. Now they have a percentage of the lot you can build on, so you cannot build the whole lot. And they have something called a step back for a second story. So the second story has to be stepped back, so you can't have a sugar cube, basically. So they're trying to, rein that in. And it took a couple projects that were very controversial that the residents got very upset about. But like all real estate, it's become very expensive. It used to be more of a middle-class neighborhood. I mean, I've lived there since the 80s, And now, you know, the average price is 1.2 million and 1.3 and up, you know, so it's tough. I mean, I'm sure it's true of Pinecrest, I can only imagine.
It's not a flooding area, is it? It's high ground.
It's built on the high ground, yes. You know, most of the older communities are built on the ridge,
By nature.
you know? And that's why, I know there's something called climate gentrification too. There's areas like Liberty City and Little Haiti that are on relatively high ground. And so they're very desirable for redevelopment based on, just on the fact that they're high.
Do you know your elevation, mostly?
I'm about 6'3". No, I'm about 15 feet above, I'm on a coral ridge, my house, but.
That's great.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you mentioned Ephraim Sturdivant's house, Julia Tuttle's father,
Yes.
being in what's now Berry College, you said. Is there any marker at all, a historic marker or?
Now, on the Sturdivant?
Yeah, I
Nothing
mean,
like that.
you know, because he was a
Yeah, nothing
senator,
else.
and then, you know,
Yeah.
I'm doing a movie on Julia Tuttle, so I'm very interested in that whole issue of when Sturdivant came in for Golden and they had a dispute, and so Sturdivant moved up to what is now Miami Shores.
Right.
But I just really wanted to pinpoint it exactly, like on a
I
map.
just know in that general area, he had a homestead. And I think homesteads were generally around 160, 169 acres.
160.
I think you were given, well, here's the thing, you've got a temporary, I think, deed to it. You had to show that you improved the land. And if you didn't improve the land, I don't think you would get that deed. And so I'm not sure if I think he applied for it and he had it. I'm not sure if I just saw
read that he bought, that it wasn't a homestead, but he.
Well, he had a homestead there. He did,
But
according to Thelma Peters in the book, yes.
Well, that could be described as a homestead versus one that was a government-issued homestead. Those could be, you know, just semantics.
Yeah, but a lot of those were government issues, I think, Bob, but.
Yeah, well, they were doing that. Let me ask you this. The railroad runs prominently through the area.
Yes.
What's the early story on a railroad station? It's nothing there anymore, I think, right? But what do you know about that?
Well, I do know on the current Miami Shores golf course, I've been told on that property, which was prairie, basically.
Right.
I've been told that's where they had one of the stops for the.
So it must have been the first thing south of Arch Creek, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I think they had a stop in Buena Vista, I think, and then one up in Miami Shores, and they had a few of them. I'm not sure of all of them, but that's what I've been told. My research tells me that.
Yeah. It would have been important to the city, you know, before the bust. You know, having a railroad station obviously was how you got all your building supplies and all the stuff that, there would have been a black and white line between when the train came and before that, in terms of the ability to build and sort of the pioneer era of bringing stuff on a cart, on a ship.
Yes,
You know, on a
yeah.
dirt road.
Right.
Versus, you know.
The convenience,
of a
yes.
train car.
Yeah, the Miami Shores golf course is bisected by the railroad tracks and the Biscayne Canal. So that's another current issue too. They want to improve the golf course, but there's
Low land, some of it, isn't it?
well, there's a dam there, and apparently in South Florida Water Management, they have a dam there now, but they're worried about intrusion.
Yeah.
And so they want to take part of the golf course and build a big tower there. And anyway, so a lot of people are upset about that.
Yeah.
And that's a current issue going on. Other current issues are sewers. There's no sewers in Miami Shores.
None?
Septic tank.
None here.
Septic tank. I take that back. The business district in Miami Shores on Second Avenue, for many years, was plagued by trying to have a restaurant and a septic tank. It was not an easy thing to
They
do.
weren't adding any more service is what it was.
Right, so what they did, they did put a sewer through and they hooked up to the county out through 103rd Street West, basically. So now we have restaurants in Miami Shores that are on the sewer. There's one community right now, it's on, off of Biscayne, it's called Miami Shores Estates, and it used to be where the old Kmart was, basically, if you guys know that. And they are in the process of being hooked up to sewers. The next, they're gonna go to the eastern Miami Shores, that's close to the bay. You know, for environmental purposes, but it's a big issue trying to get grants, and then how much is it gonna cost to homeowners? It should have been done many, many years ago, but I don't know how many communities are on septic tanks, but.
Carl Gales is going through the same issue, it's gonna be very expensive.
So that's a big issue, yeah.
A lot of the unincorporated areas are septic. I'm on septic.
Yeah. All right. Yes, sir.
I want to go back to the furniture guy. Was it Miller or Moore?
TV Moore.
When I worked at the Miami News, we did a lot of stories in the cemetery. And there's a woman buried in the cemetery whose husband thought she was the prettiest thing in the world. And they took her out to the cemetery, put rebar over her, no casket, and poured concrete over her because he thought that her image should survive. Is that the same?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, that's why we did the story.
She wasn't so pretty after that, I guess. No, anyway, no, he predeceased his wife.
Oh, okay.
So I know it, it's not him.
I do work for some Moores. He has.
Gerald?
He's got an office down at 23rd.
Yeah, Jake, they're both lawyers, Gerald and James.
Right, and I do work at the Bay Oaks.
Oh, yes, that's
The
correct.
wife is Bay Oaks,
That's-
and they own
Yeah,
an old apartment building on the west side of the boulevard, I think, right at 20-something street, really old apartment building.
I mean,
But I wasn't sure if they were the same.
it is. I interviewed, his sister is called Ann Polk.
Dan Paul, I do her work.
Right, and I interviewed them for our oral history project, and they're amazing. I mean, they have a foundation, but they're almost like, I don't know how to say this. They contribute to causes, particularly education, but they don't want any recognition, you know. They're not about, you know, being in the limelight. They're about giving money to worthy causes and being kind of anonymous about it. I mean, it's really, really interesting. Also, Moore Park, if you know where Moore Park is, that also was part of TV Moore's land at one point. So they donated that land, the Moore family donated that land to the city of Miami.
Is Bay Oaks part of Miami Shores?
Now, Bay Oaks is a nursing retirement community that's on about 30th and Biscayne, it's in the city of Miami.
The oldest one, nursing home in Miami, supposedly.
I heard it's the best. I heard it's the best.
Yeah, I've done work there for years, but it's old.
Is the plumbing in good shape, would you say? No?
Okay, we'll take one more question. Yes, sir.
I went to school years ago up that way, and I just wondered if there was anything left, the Miami Military Academy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can tell you what it is now.
Yeah.
Quayside.
What?
Quayside. It's
Quayside.
there's a bunch of towers right on the bay there. The first ones were the cricket club, the jockey club, and Quayside came later on. My mother-in-law lives there, but it's a series of about 3 or 4 towers and some townhomes. Yeah. But that's where the Miami Military Academy was.
Yeah. And when did all this happen? When
Probably in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the newest one got built on what that remaining portion was.
Well, the property ran from the bay all the way to Biscayne.
Yeah, maybe it's
That
earlier.
section just got built,
Yeah.
couple of new towers and townhomes.
That's quite it's a good question.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I want to thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.